the Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that.
Yo, what is up, Ravens flock? We are back for week 5 of the Everything Ravens podcast. My name is Logan. I'm the host of this podcast. I run the Instagram account at everything_Ravens, which is the biggest Ravens fan community on Instagram. I also run the account at Everything Ravens podcast, which gives the latest updates involving this podcast. Make sure you follow both of those accounts. We have a new co-host joining us. Brooks, who is normally on here, could not make it in today. So Spencer, the editor, behind the scenes guy, will be joining us today on the podcast. So introduce yourself, Spencer.
What's up, guys? My name's Spencer. I'm filling in this week for Brooks, as Logan said. I do a lot of the behind-the-scenes work, executive producing and editing. I'm really happy to be in front of the mic this week. Really excited. We're talking about all-time Ravens defense. I think when you look at our all-time Ravens defense compared to some of the all-time defenses around the league, our defense really stacks up pretty well. So I'm just really excited to be here, ready to talk some Ravens football.
Hey guys, it's Kyrie. I'm excited we got Spencer on this here to talk about some all-time defense. You know, Ravens been historically known for our defenses, so it's going to be a good talk.
Yeah, I'm really excited to do all-time defense. Like, just looking at my wall right now, I have Ray Lewis's jersey hanging up, Ed Reed's jersey hanging up, and Haloti Ngata's jersey hanging up. So we're obviously known for defense, so this will be a really fun episode.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty, but before we get into the all-time defense, there's some big Ravens news involving, well, I wouldn't say it's like big, kind of big, involving a former player that's beloved here in Baltimore. That's Joe Flacco signing with the New York Jets. What is your guys' thoughts on that?
The Ravens fan in me kind of wanted Joe Flacco to kind of just ride off into the sunset after Lamar Jackson came. I thought his skill set has been declining, and I think it would have been a good time to just call it a career. But the Joe Flacco fan in me, you know, I'm excited for him. I want him to do well. I want him to succeed. I'm happy a team picked him up, and, you know, I think it'll be a great fit. I think he can teach Sam Darnold a lot. My main issue with it is actually on the Jets side, the Baltimore Jets, as we like to call them now, kind of picking up all our old players. And I'm a little bit confused about it because Cam Newton is still on the market and they went with Joe Flacco. No offense to my guy Joe, but I mean, Cam Newton's a little bit better. I'm just a little bit confused on that side, but I'm happy for Joe.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Joe Flacco was probably, I don't know, I go back between him and Ray Lewis is like my favorite all-time Raven. So I have a lot of memories of Flacco. So it was definitely hard to see him become a Denver Bronco and now a Jet. You know, I wish he would have just retired after Lamar Jackson. But I do like the Jet situation only because Sam Darnold hasn't shown that he can play 16 games yet. So until I see that, I'm confident at some point down the road he might get injured or something might happen. And who knows, Flacco comes in, maybe he does really good with the offense and can kind of give him like a resurgence in his career, could probably compete for a starting job the next year after that. You never really know. But, you know, to me, it seems like Flacco's going to go down that path of a quarterback that was a veteran for a couple of years, had a couple of starts, and then after that, start going from team to team as a backup and then just kind of quietly fades away, which is like a real shame because he's like a legend in Baltimore. I mean, before our Super Bowl here, he was our most winning historical quarterback, broke a lot of the records for us. So it's just tough seeing him in that situation right now, especially as a Jet. I mean, that team is just like trash dumpster organization, to be honest with you. So it's a little disappointing.
Yeah, with Flacco, the thing is, too, is Sam Darnold has not really shown. He was a former 3rd overall pick, obviously, but he hasn't shown that he's just going to be some great quarterback. He has struggled a lot, and he definitely has not been near as bad as like Mitchell Trubisky per se, but he hasn't been great either. So if Sam Darnold, goes in there this year and is just terrible, maybe they could turn to Joe Flacco without Darnold even getting hurt. Who really knows?
Yeah, I see year 3 for quarterbacks as kind of a make or break year. Sam Darnold's kind of been iffy so far. He's shown some promise, but he's also shown some lacklusterness. And I think with a mentor, you know, if Joe can kind of help him learn the position a little bit, I think we could see Sam Darnold turn into something pretty good.
Another thing, the Jets is it's no security with that job because if Adam Gase doesn't win games this year, he's probably going to get fired middle of the season and then, you know, have a whole new coaching staff that kind of comes in the next year. I don't know if they're going to want to keep Flacco after it's a 1-year deal. So that's another thing to consider. Just like I said, the whole organization is just like a whole colossal crap show. So I really don't know what's going on. I'm just like, okay, they signed Flacco. Who else are they going to sign? They're going to bring Ray Rice back or something? I don't know. They just keep signing Raven players and they're not really getting any wins. But we'll see. But it's just Baltimore Jets. Baltimore Jets.
Yeah, you got a point. I'm pretty sure there's like 9 former Ravens on the Jets, and there's been like 17 total the past 2 years. So they definitely love our scraps. But yeah, I was looking today, or not today, but the other day, excuse me, and I was seeing my Flacco jersey, my CJ Mosley jersey, and I posted it on my account too, and I was like reunited, I guess. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, not the way you kind of really want to be reunited, but it's interesting. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wish the best. Wish the best for Joe Flacco.
For
My boy.
sure.
Alrighty, so let's not keep you waiting any longer. Let's get into the all-time defense, what everyone came here, the subject for this podcast. So with defensive line, I had Haloti Ngata, Kelly Gregg, and Trevor Price. What did you guys have?
I had Haloti Ngata, Tony Siragusa, Michael McCary, and I had Trevor Price.
Yeah, I went with, on defensive end, Haloti Ngata, 2011. Dude's built like a Mack truck. Defensive end number 2, I went with Adalys Thomas, 2006. And then in my interior D-line, I went with Michael McCrary. And then Brandon Williams, 2018. I had Tony Siragusa, the big goose, on the outside, but I couldn't find a way to squeeze him in there.
Yeah, I mean, Haloti Ngata is the obvious person you'd go for with the defensive line. He's the greatest Ravens defensive lineman ever. And I went with the 2010 version of Haloti Ngata. The year he had 5.5 sacks, 12 tackles were lost, and he also had a Pro Bowl and an All-Pro appearance to go along with it. Haloti Ngata was just so good when he was with us.
Ball tipped, and was it caught? Ngata. The old rugby player in high school back in Salt Lake City. He tapped it and dove for it.
Yeah, the dude ended up getting 5 interceptions in his Ravens career on the D-line, which is just crazy to me. Like, how do you do that? He was just insane. Weighed over 350 pounds, used every single pound to bully Steeler, Brown, and Bengal O-linemen. Just really was fun to watch and was really key on that Super Bowl run.
Yeah, I mean, I love Ngata. I mean, I was so, like, heartbroken when we traded him. But I remember when we first traded him, it's like, okay, it's age and, salary cap. Ozzie knows what he's doing. I'm just like, oh, come on. Like, seriously? But then you saw when he got to Detroit and then got to Philadelphia for that 1 year, he just wasn't the same player. But when he was, I mean, he was dominant. I mean, I think the first 2 years, or maybe the first year, he didn't make Pro Bowl. But he made like 4 or 5 straight. I mean, this guy was just a monster. He could just, a complete run snuffer, just physical, hard to block, just a great leader on the defense side of the ball. So you definitely got to put his 2010. I agree with you, Logan. That's probably his best season. And Tony, I put Tony on my list just because I have a soft spot for Big Tony, because that 2000 Ravens defense was all-time great. Him, Ray Lewis, and just I can go on. And just all the memories from that first Super Bowl. And he was just a big presence on the defense. And he was just a nasty guy. I mean, this guy went after. I mean, he just was the typical definition of a Raven. And that's one thing I love about Tony. So a little soft spot, but I put him on there.
Yeah, nose tackle, I went with Kelly Gregg from 2007. Kelly Gregg, he wasn't ever really great, but he was just a solid, consistent nose tackle for us for like 10 years. In that 2007 season, he had 84 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. So I think that's a really, really good year for a nose tackle. So that's why I went with Kelly Gregg from that year. And then I went with Trevor Price, 2006. We didn't really expect all that much from Trevor Price when we first signed him, but he came in and had 13 sacks. So I couldn't find a way to not include Trevor Price with the all-time defensive lineman for that year he had in 2006.
Yeah, and then on my defensive end, I actually went on the opposite side of him. I went Adalys Thomas when he played in 2006. I think that 06 Ravens defense is severely underrated. That was a great year for us. We went 13-3. It was very eerily similar to this year, where we ended up losing very unfortunately in the divisional round. But that defense against Peyton Manning in the playoffs held him to 5 field goals, 15 points. And then Adalys Thomas, got to shout out my guy, 106 tackles, 11 sacks, 7 passes swatted down at the line. He also was a little bit of a scorer, too. He took home a fumble recovery, 57 yards to the house that year, and then tacked on a safety. 2006, like I said, great year for our defense. He was a first-team All-Pro, and I think this was by far the best year of his career. I think it deserves some recognition.
So now let's get on to linebackers, which is kind of what the Ravens are known for. When you think of linebacker factories, whether it's edge, inside in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens are one of the first teams that comes to mind. We're so good at producing linebackers, and we have such a rich history with these players, and the list keeps going on and on and on. There were so many players that I wanted to include with the linebackers, but I really could not find a spot. So let's start it off at edge. I had T. Sizzle from 2011, Defensive Player of the Year.
Dalton stripped to the ball. Terrell Suggs knocked it loose.
The second time today that he's got a strip sack.
At the other edge rusher, I had Elvis Dumervil from 2014. And that inside linebacker, obviously, it's going to be Ray Lewis. I mean, who else would you really put inside linebacker besides Ray?
Sanchez throws middle. What a shot by Lewis on Dustin Keller. As the ball arrived, shoulder pad level and down, so there's no penalty.
The master of disaster, 15 years he's been lighting people up over the middle.
And a perfectly clean hit.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. T. Sizzle, 2011. I went Peter Boulware, actually, 2001. And then, of course, Ray Lewis. I think with middle linebacker, it's not really a question of who, but what year for Ray Lewis. I went with the 2000 Super Bowl run.
Yeah, I went with obviously Terrell Suggs in 2011. I mean, 14 sacks. You can't really argue that. Defensive Player of the Year.
7 forced fumbles.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was just a monster. I mean, it's Terrell. He always knew how to get after the quarterback, but 2011 just was unstoppable. And then my second, I actually went with Jared Johnson in 2009, who I feel like is one of the most underrated Ravens players. I feel like you're not a diehard Ravens fan. You don't really know who Jared Johnson is, but he was a steady, constant worker for us for a couple of seasons, and he was always consistent. He was always there. He was healthy. He was always reliable. So I always loved Jared Johnson. And then obviously Ray Lewis. I picked 2000. I mean, you can pick any year really with Ray Lewis, but I'm just gonna go 2000 when he was MVP and just Super Bowl MVP and just Hall of Famer. And I also want to put C.J. Mosley in there from 2018 because I love C.J. Mosley. He was like my successor to Ray Lewis, so I had to add him too.
Yeah, with Ray Lewis, 2000, it wasn't his best statistical season, but on defense, your impact isn't always reflected on the stat sheet. And even so, he was really able to stuff the stat sheet that year. He had 137 tackles, 3 interceptions, a forced fumble, 3 sacks, and he was the heart and soul of the best defense of all time. That defense had the fewest points allowed in a season. They allowed only 11 points per game. And then they somehow got better in the playoffs, only allowing 23 points during the entire 4-game stretch. Super Bowl MVP, I mean, Ray Lewis 2000, just an easy pick for me.
Yeah, for me personally, I went with the 2003 Ray Lewis, the year he won Defensive Player of the Year. Well, one of the years he won Defensive Player of the Year. He won 2, but that year he had 163 tackles and 6 interceptions. Ray Lewis was just a machine. I'm pretty sure he had a 180 tackles season once, which is almost unheard of. Greatest middle linebacker of all time, easily, and my idol, my favorite athlete period of all time. I love Ray Lewis.
The crazy thing is, I was actually thinking about putting 2012 Ray Lewis at first because I just look back at that season. I mean, I still remember the day he announced that he was coming back from the injury. This was his last ride. He told the troops to get ready and go to war, and this is it. And it literally sparked that whole team to go off in that Super Bowl. I mean, it literally changed everything for us as a football team. And, we went in, we beat Andrew Luck, who was like the next second coming of quarterbacks. Then we go and beat Peyton Manning in one of the craziest divisional rounds ever in NFL to me. The Mile High Miracle, Justin Tucker, a rookie kicker, hitting a game winner to seal a deal. No one believed that we could do it. I mean, he was emotional. And then the Super Bowl, Tom Brady in New England, getting revenge against them. So that 2012 Ray Lewis will always hold something very special. That wasn't his best year at all, but just what he did for that team as a leader and putting a fire in him to say, hey, we're going to war one more time. Let's do it. and to go out on top, to me, that always would be the Ray Lewis I remember the most.
I remember that Cowboys game. He tore his bicep completely off the bone, and we were like, oh no, he's done. And to be able to come back and play, and I remember he had that massive like cast thing on his arm throughout the entire playoffs. Dude is just a beast. I don't know how you come back from something like that and help us win. Another shout out to an injured player on that Super Bowl run, Terrell Suggs, my outside linebacker. If you guys remember, he tore his Achilles at the beginning of the Super Bowl season, in the offseason. It might have been basketball. It might have been what his agent said was offseason workout. That's not important. But he came back 5 months after the surgery and balled out in the playoffs, sacking Manning twice. I've seen Achilles injuries. They're bad. My dad had one. It was 10 years ago. He's still not fully recovered. To be able to return from a torn Achilles 5 months after the surgery and play at the highest level is just insane to me.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And he tore it twice in his career too, so that really kind of shows how tough Terrell Suggs is, because he came back from it twice.
Just a monster. And then I wanted to explain a little bit of my Peter Boulware pick. He's the second all-time sacks leader for the Ravens history, just behind Balso Hard University, T. Sizzle. His name was the first to hang on the Ring of Honor at M&T Bank Stadium. Ozzie Newsome honored him first. He was just a major part of that Ravens 2000 defense that carried Trent Dilfer. And no shade to my guy Trent Dilfer, but he's not Patty Mahomes. He's not that great. That offense was very lackluster. And for us to go win the Lombardi that year, you got to show some respect to that Ravens 2000 defense. I think it's one of the greatest of all time. I actually picked his 2001 season. He had crazy versatility. Marvin Lewis was able to play him all around that front seven, from interior lineman, outside lineman, inside linebacker, outside linebacker. And that versatility really showed up on his stat sheet. He was able to rack up 15 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, and then along with that, 15 more TFLs. So just a beast.
Yeah, for me personally, I could see the argument to put Boulware there. I definitely considered it. I love Peter Boulware. But I just went with Elvis Dumervil 2014. You really can't deny what he did that year. 17 sacks. Go along with 2 forced fumbles, as well as a Pro Bowl appearance and an All-Pro appearance. And Elvis Dumervil was a key part of that 2014 team that made it to the divisional round against the New England Patriots.
Yeah, he was definitely a beast. I think he has the all-time single-season sack record for Ravens. I was thinking of him, but I had to give Peter Boulware the nod just because of that 2000 defense.
Yeah, I love Elvis. I mean, well, I used to always call him Doom, but I loved Elvis Dumervil. He was one of my favorite players within the past couple of years. And I always loved the irony of how we signed him over, was a fax mistake or something like that from the Denver Broncos. And it was just that whole story was always funny to me. So we was fortunate to have him. And he was a great leader for us on the defense side of the ball. So I did think about Dumervil, but I just went with Jared Johnson because he was always just reliable and just hardworking, just grit and grind. I always love those type of players for the Ravens.
Yeah, and another linebacker I'd like to give a quick shout out to that we haven't mentioned yet. He's not on my team, but Bart Scott, one of the most hard-nosed, tough, physical linebackers I've ever watched play. I absolutely loved watching Bart Scott play, so couldn't go without giving him a quick shout out. Now, finally, we have defensive backs. For me personally, we'll just start off with cornerback. I had Marlon Humphrey from 2019, actually. I think Humphrey, from just a pure talent standpoint, is already the most talented corner we've ever had. He doesn't have the longevity or the accolades as a Raven quite yet, but if Humphrey's here, as long as a guy like Chris McAllister, who's my cornerback too, is, I think he'll easily be the best corner in Ravens history if he's here that long.
Gotta agree with you there. I don't think the Ravens necessarily have the most depth at corner. But yeah, Marlon Humphrey 2019 gets the nod for me. I think if there was an award for Defensive Player of the Year for the first half of the year, Humphrey definitely should have got that nod. He was so impactful the first 8 games of the season. If you just remember, he completely bullied OBJ. He had a clutch forced fumble and then recovery in overtime versus the Steelers.
Shotgun. Hodges hits his man. Juju Smith-Schuster, the ball got lodged loose. fight for it. The Ravens have it with Marlon Humphrey.
Remember that crazy bounce, and then he somehow dove on the ball when there was like 3 Steelers around it. Then he had a fumble return for a touchdown to seal the game in Seattle.
Russell Wilson's first pass to Metcalf. And Metcalf had it, lost it, and is picked up by the Ravens. And running in is Marlon Humphrey for the touchdown. Wow.
And then a fumble return for a touchdown in a close game versus New England.
Edelman again. And the ball is out. And there's no whistle yet. And this is Marlon Humphrey who's going to take it to the end zone. It'll be 70 yards if it stands.
His impact on the stat sheet kind of went down towards the end of last season. I don't really think that had much to do with him as much as our defense kind of just like really gelled together. We got Marcus Peters, and his need to carry us lessened. But I definitely see Marlon Humphrey probably ending up as one of the greatest Ravens cornerbacks of all time. And then I went with Chris McAllister, 06, as my cornerback too. Big physical dude, lock up larger receivers, just a great press corner. Really strong impact on the 2000 defense and the 06 defense. I mean, just an incredible athlete, one of the Ravens' best lockdown corners.
Yeah, I actually switched them. I went with Chris for my first cornerback, his 2003 year, and then 2, I went with Marlon Humphrey in 2019. Just with McAllister, he made the Pro Bowl that year, was the first team all defense. So I put that first team, so I put that in consideration. But really just 3 interceptions, 44 combined tackles, and he had a really quiet, really competitive couple years with Baltimore before that last season with New Orleans. So I put him just a little bit ahead of Marlon Humphrey just because, like you said, beginning of 2019, Humphrey was a beast, an animal, and he did start to dip a little bit middle of the season.
I agree with that. You could kind of flip-flop both of those guys back and forth.
Yeah, the thing with Humphrey, why people argue that he is in the top corner in the league, is because he doesn't get a ton of picks. But in my opinion, for that, quarterbacks rarely throw at him just because he's so good at locking receivers down. And in my opinion, interceptions are a bit of an overrated stat, although I'm not trying to put any disrespect towards Ed Reed, because I feel like getting interceptions as a safety is different than getting interceptions as a corner. But I think interceptions are an overrated stat for a cornerback because if you have a lot of interceptions, that means you're getting thrown at a lot, and Humphrey doesn't have a lot because he rarely gets thrown at. And you saw in week 4 versus the Browns versus OBJ, he locked OBJ down so bad, a way OBJ has never been locked down before, to where OBJ tried to start a fight with him, and then Humphrey put him in his place, as we all know. But that's my argument for Marlon Humphrey and why he's cornerback 1.
And the thing I love about Humphrey is he is a true lockdown corner. I mean, I agree with you to some degree as far as interceptions. Don't get me wrong, I love interceptions because we get the ball back on offense, or we can get pick 6 and get some points. But if you can have one guy say, okay, I need you to take out OBJ, I need you to take out DeAndre Hopkins, I need you to get them out of the equation. Guys are averaging, 60, 70, 80 yards a game, 100 yards a game, big time performance. Say, hey, keep them to 20 yards, keep them to 30 yards, keep them from scoring a touchdown. I'll take that any day of the week because you went like Bill Belichick in New England. He always gets rid of your best players. What you do best, he gets rid of it. Marlon Humphrey, you can put him with any receiver, and I can guarantee you they're not going to have the productive they usually going to have throughout the rest of the season. And that's very valuable in today's league because of it's so pass heavy. So I love Marlon Humphrey. He's physical. He's tough. He got some swagger to him. And like I said, he's just a true lockdown corner. So I don't really mind the lack of turnovers because no one's, like you said, no one's throwing his direction because quarterbacks already know, hey, 9 out of 10, this receiver's not even going to get this ball. Why am I wasting my time with this?
Definitely got to agree. I'm really excited to see what the future has in store for Marlon.
Alrighty, so let's get into safeties. I think free safety, it's an obvious one. It's Ed Reed.
Throws into the end zone. It's intercepted by Ed Reed. He gets away from Cobb, and he is still going down the sideline. Brent Selleck trying to cut him off. Reed needs one more block. He goes all the way. Touchdown.
And for me, it was definitely his 2004 year, but with Ed Reed and free safety, it's not who's the all-time free safety for the Ravens. It's just what year with Ed Reed, kind of like Lewis. So I went with Ed Reed, obviously, there. with his 9 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, Defensive Player of the Year, Pro Bowl, and All-Pro year in 2004. Strong safety, I think there's a bit of debate, but I went with 2016 Eric Weddle because he naturally played well, he didn't naturally play it, but he did play strong safety that year because Ladarius Webb was free safety, and I thought Weddle had a great year in 2016. So
now he's hit, and the ball is intercepted and run out of the end zone by Eric Weddle. Huge turn of events.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ed Reed, 04, easy decision. He's the greatest safety of all time, better than a certain safety on a rival team with weird hair. His 2004 season, just the most Ed Reed season ever. I mean, he broke the record for most interception return yards in a season. He had 9 interceptions for 358 return yards. That's an average of 40 yards per return. His ability to just completely flip the field whenever he got his hands on the ball is just so amazing. He had, along with his 9 interceptions, he had 3 forced fumbles, 78 tackles, 2 sacks, and he proved why he's the Browns' greatest pass catcher. He had an 106-yard interception return for a touchdown versus the Browns that year. I mean, Pro Bowl, first team All-Pro, Defensive Player of the Year, just a GOAT season for the GOAT. And then for me, strong safety, as you said, there's a little bit of debate here. I actually went with DeJuan Landry, 2006. As I mentioned, I think that 06 team is super underrated, and this guy was a big part of that team. Him and Ed really manned that secondary together, helped put together the league's #1 defense in yards allowed. And even though it was just his rookie season, the dude was able to grab 5 interceptions, 11 passes defended. He had 3 sacks and a pick 6. I was really thinking about going with Weddle or Eric Weddle 2016 or maybe Rod Woodson 2000. They all have very similar stat lines, and I think Rod Woodson and Weddle would be better leaders. They were both veterans by the time they came to Baltimore. But when you look around the all-time Ravens roster, there's really, really strong leadership at every single position. So if we're trying to construct like a strong all-around roster, I think we can sacrifice some leadership for some raw, natural ability. And I think DeJuan Landry definitely has that, and I wanted to shout out that 06 team once again.
Yeah, of course you gotta go with Ed Reed. I mean, Bill Belichick, one of the greatest head coaches, one great defensive mind, said this guy is probably the best player I've ever seen. Ed Reed was just phenomenal, just a straight ball hawk, just a playmaker on the defense side of the ball. Just, I mean, literally he was a wide receiver. You felt like he was a wide receiver on defense. Just he can catch anything. So and he was so fast, just good tackler, just everything. Great leader. Him and Ray Lewis like the best 1-2 punch. So definitely gotta go with Ed Reed in 2004. I struggled a little bit. I was contemplating Rod Woodson from 2000 just because a former Steeler won one with the Ravens, and he was actually a great leader for us. He actually had a good year back in 2000 on the Ravens. He's one of the biggest pivotal roles in the defense that year, when that all-time great defense. And then Eric Weddle, just because I have a soft spot for Weddle because of the beard, just everything about Eric Weddle. He was like one of the biggest signs we had in a while. So when we got him from Chargers, I was like, yes, let's go. And just even after he left, his loyalty to us, I don't think some people remember, he said he wasn't going to give like any of the insider stuff about the Ravens to the Rams because he wants the Ravens, always the Ravens. So just the loyalty to that. So I guess I would go with Eric Weddle over Rod Woodson or Landry just because he had a great 2016, 17, 18. He did have 3 really good years with the Baltimore Ravens, Pro Bowls, and was a great leader for us. So I have to go with Weddle.
Yeah, I agree. It could kind of be a toss-up for all 3 of those guys. I love Weddle. I really respect his loyalty. Even if it was a short tenure, I was really happy he was there for 3 years.
And I was so sad because I was like, oh, my God, we lost Weddle. I'm going to cry. The beard's gone. Then, like, a couple weeks later, like, oh, we got a Thomas. I'm like, oh, well, hey, I'm fine. Nope. And, nice meeting. It's like when you break up with your ex-girlfriend and you get a hotter girlfriend. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm fine now. I don't miss you no more. So it was kind of like a little bittersweet.
Yeah, definitely.
Great analogy.
EDC has a way.
Okay, so finally, let's get the special teams. Kicker. I mean, the Ravens really have always had a great kicker. I mean, we've had 3 that I can think of. We had Stover, we had Justin Tucker, and then we have a name that I won't speak of. But I went with Tucker on this one, obviously. But, I mean, I guess you could put Stover on it, but I went with Tucker. I think Tucker's the greatest kicker of all time. Punter, I went with Sam Cook. Long snapper, I went with Morgan Cox. The whole wolf pack.
You really had to bring up Billy Cundiff, dude. That hurt. I had Justin Tucker as well. Sam Cook. I think Tucker is gonna be the obvious pick. Like you said, Matt Staver was great, but he's not the most accurate kicker of all time. That is Justin Tucker. I just chose 2016 with Tucker because the dude missed one kick all season, went 38 out of 39, perfect on extra points. The only miss wasn't even his fault. It was blocked in the Patriots game. So that season, the dude really lived up to his nickname, Automat Tuck. And then Sam Cook, you could really just pick any year with this guy. He's very reliable. He's so consistent. I went with 2015 for him because that's surprisingly his only All-Pro season. But him and Harbaugh have always been a lethal special teams combo. I may not always be happy when he walks on the field because that means we're getting rid of the ball. But I always feel comfortable when I see number 4 in that backfield. You know what I mean? Like, he rarely makes mistakes. He's got a great ability to just completely flip the fields or manage a fake. I just think he's a top 3 punter in the league.
Yeah.
And then shout out Morgan Cox, sorry.
Yeah, definitely Morgan Cox. I love Morgan Cox. The whole wolf pack is just amazing. I have all of them on my list. For Justin Tucker, he's the greatest kicker of all time, so any year is a good year. I went with 2012 only because he did miss 3 field goals, but I didn't even really know anything about Justin Tucker. I was like, well, listen, we just had Cundiff, and I'm just like, I'll take anybody else right now. So when I found that Tucker, was going to be our kick, I said, okay, let's see what happens. Then week 3 against New England, Justin Tucker does what Cundiff could not do.
Justin Tucker for the win. Whoa, baby! Oh, just good. And the Patriots are saying no. No.
I'm like, okay, great. Game winner. Let's go. Exciting. Bill Belichick said it wasn't, but I'll take it. So that was a great moment. And then going to Denver, the Mile High Miracle. The game's online. You see John Harbaugh holding Ray Rice's knee. Everyone's just like, what's going to happen? The stadium is quiet. Denver fans don't know what's going to happen. I'm literally like at the edge of my couch, like, please make this kick. And Justin Tucker just shows us glimpses of what was going to be a forever thing for him as a Raven, and just makes a game-winning kick again to take us to the conference championship.
Kick is on its way, and it looks good.
Then in the Super Bowl, he went for the first ever 2-point conversion. It failed, but he still made some history in the Super Bowl. And he had 2 late field goals that pretty much sealed the game for us in that Super Bowl. So I wanted the 2012 year because for his first year, he just made big moments for me as a Ravens fan, making a kick that Cundiff couldn't make against New England in week 3, and then going a Mile High, getting the game-winning kick in overtime. Then the Super Bowl, just Tucker's all-time great. And he's actually a pretty good opera singer. So the guy's like multi-talented.
Yeah, definitely got to shout out his opera abilities. Yeah, like middle linebacker, like free safety, kicker, it's not who, but when for Justin Tucker. And, I've loved him, as you mentioned, ever since he made that field goal. He did what Billy Cundiff could not. He barely made that field goal versus the Patriots. And I've loved him ever since. He's been the GOAT ever since then.
Yeah, and like a lot of kickers around the league, when you get those high-pressure game-on-the-line field goals, a lot of kickers melt in those situations. Justin Tucker lives for those situations. He loves it. He doesn't get nervous at all, and you see it on the field. He has confidence that he's going to make it. He doesn't care what the moment is. He's going to make it.
Yeah, and you think back to that 2013 game versus the Lions where he single-footedly beat the Lions for us. I think he scored every single point that game, including a 63, I believe, yard game winner. Just a beast.
On the way, drifting right, and it is good! It is good! From 61! Unbelievable! How good is that?
And then you got to shout out kick returner and punt returner. For me, I want Jacoby Jones, 2012, the Super Bowl hero himself. He had 2 touchdowns in that game, including the longest play in Super Bowl history.
Back from 9 deep for Jacoby Jones, and look at him go. Jones is past the 50, and he is flying inside the 20, and a kickoff return,
record.
He was never that great of an all-around player, but something just came over him during that Super Bowl run. He was on fire that entire postseason. He's the all-time Ravens leader in kick return yards. He's had 6 total kickoff returns for touchdown while in Baltimore. Just an electrifying player during that Super Bowl run. Of course, he had the kickoff return for the touchdown in the Super Bowl, and then of course the mile-high miracle to tie the game against the Broncos. And then I went punt returner. I went with Jermaine Lewis, 2000. He holds basically all of our punt return records. He's just a shifty, quick twitch player. Like Jones, he was a decent receiver, but a great return man. And I thought it was pretty interesting. We played in 2 Super Bowls, and in both of those games, we've had a kickoff return for a touchdown. Of course, the Jacoby Jones longest play in Super Bowl history. But then Jermaine Lewis, it was a little bit shorter. He fielded the kickoff at the 20 or so and then returned it to the house.
It's going to be short. From the 17 is Jermaine Lewis, and Lewis with room to run. Breaks to the outside, to the 45, the 50, down the sideline, and he's going to go!
So just 2 amazing return men.
Yeah, I agree. I have Jacoby Jones 2012. Just what a great year of Jacoby. Mile High Miracle, favorite play of all time from as a Ravens fan. And then the return to the Super Bowl just is like beautiful, icing on the cake. I'll always remember just running in my living room, just screaming like, holy crap, this guy just ran like 102 yards. What just happened here? So Jacoby Jones is great. And as a receiver, he was pretty average. He used to he can make some big plays. He's a good deep threat because his speed, his elusiveness, but started to get really inconsistent. So that 2012 year was definitely his best year. And then punter, I have to agree with you, Lewis. Just a break artist, just everything with stats. Just had a great year for us, and just fast. And the one thing, Ravens, just like with defense, is really good with special teams. I know even before John Harbaugh, they were still pretty good at special teams. So just for organization to be fundamentally sound in defense and special teams shows you why this organization won a lot of games over these years.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Jacoby Jones, I'm sitting here looking at my wall. I have a Jacoby Jones signed jersey, as well as I have the Sports Illustrated magazine after the Ravens won the Super Bowl, which has Jacoby Jones as the cover. So a lot of memories there with Jacoby Jones.
You look back at, was it 2014 in that Vikings game, the snow? I think he had one of those 5 touchdowns in the last however many minutes that helped us win that incredible game. Just some great memories of Jacoby Jones as a Ravens fan. As you mentioned, I also have a signed picture of him when he caught the Mile High Miracle catch. He holds a lot of my favorite memories as a Ravens fan.
He was so good as a returner that, remember in Thanksgiving, Mike Tomlin literally had to trip him to just try to stop him.
At the goal line by Jones. Jacoby Jones gets by Sweezum. And taken down at the 27-yard line. Only Cortez Allen stood between Jones and the goal line.
Well, here we go. Here's Tomlin over here. Obviously, Jacoby Jones there. And Tomlin is essentially on the field here. And you just wonder, he's trying to get out of the way there. But did that force Jacoby Jones to lean back into the tackle by Cortez Allen?
Just little things like that just shows you how great a returner you are when the head coach of a rival team has to put his foot out on the field on Thanksgiving Day just to try to slow you down a little bit. So that's always one of my favorite moments of Jacoby Jones.
That's all we have for this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We're looking forward to bringing you more content each and every Friday. You can listen to the show on all your favorite streaming devices, including SoundCloud, Apple Music, and Spotify. Make sure to give us a good review and follow us on all those streaming services so we can keep this podcast rolling. Make sure to follow at everything_Ravens on Instagram, which is me. Also, make sure to follow at Everything Ravens Podcast on Instagram to get the most up-to-date news on everything Ravens and our show. I would also like to give a big shout-out to our co-hosts for helping me today, Kyrie Jones and Brooks Lebo. They did a fantastic job. They have some really excellent insight, and thank you guys for all your help. Another shout-out goes to our executive producer, Spencer Silverstein. He's done a great job with production and helping everything run smoothly. Big shout out to him. Our final shout out goes to our intro music creator, Jack Davis. He did a fantastic job creating this intro. Make sure you give all those guys a follow. You can find their handles on the bio of @EverythingRavens podcast on Instagram. That's all we have for this week. Thank you, listeners, for all your support, and can't wait to be here this time next week. Once again, this is Logan signing off. Go Ravens.
They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that.
No copyright intended. All content rights go to their respective owners.